All right. So what I decided to do for this is kind of just go into some student account randomly and look at what kind of feedback I've given them in the past. So I'm just going to kind of snip together some of the feedback and without really thinking about if I gave them great feedback or not. So my first one here is for Ida Peterson, and you can see I already gave some pretty canned feedback. I did not put anything personal in there. It's kind of my general one for if it looks pretty good, it just has some minor errors, but then they didn't really give me um, as a Google Doc, so then I use suggestions a lot. And for my feedback, I do more feedback on the document itself than I do in this little box here. That's just kind of my general feedback. I often give positive or negative. We'll see if my random pool of students turns out that way. But in this case, I don't have anything specific on there because it's not a Google Doc, which in my welcome email, I ask students to submit things as Google Docs. So it's pretty general here. Please submit as a Google Doc. You have some writing errors, and so I can give full credit. Okay. I'm gonna pause. All right, here's my second one. I do for discussion-based assessments allow them to create their own questions and answer them. I'm not real proud of my feedback on this one either, to be perfectly honest, because I usually look for more, and I did indicate on there, but it looks like I was pretty generous for grading. Again, I think my feedback is still pretty extrinsic. It's maybe not encourage them to be the best student they can be. So I do have some goals and ideas as I'm kind of going through this. But my it's a little bit more specific. But for my discussion-based assessments, I don't actually meet with students unless they ask to. That is an option. Again, for this Google Doc, I've given her since 100%. I don't give 100% often the first time unless it's like perfect. I often, and they know this, it's in my welcome email, but I always put on the right, revise and resubmit for full credit because I think the learning is in the process. So that's why I think feedback is so important for all of us. But again, I don't see much personal touch in there. It's just about my general feedback for this particular student on this randomly pulled assignment. Just to fix the writing errors. And I do that pretty often because I'm trying to help them with their writing abilities, and oftentimes the content is fine. All right, for this particular student, you can still see my comments as the content is quite good. My comment over here is pretty general about the writing. And then within here, I give specific suggestions on how to fix the writing. And yeah, I could put some personal things in there, but that's for a lot of these run-of-the-mill assignments what I do. So I don't know, I'm kind of seeing a pretty big pattern here. I'm not putting a personal touch in, but I am giving, as much help as I can on the assignment itself, unless there are content issues. And looking back at this one, again, I don't see any content issues. It's just some writing. And actually, I did miss some things. So it happens. All right, I think I did a little bit better with this one. I did pull it in randomly. I only chose him because I saw that he was done. And I have quite a few comments in here about, not really a logical conclusion. Of course, there's my typical writing stuff. Over on the right, I said, hi, Nathan. So at least put the name in there. You have some good points about the Sixth and Second Amendment. So I did put something positive in addition to on the actual document, which is usually where I put that. But more than one place is not bad. At the beginning of the second letter, you said individual rights are not absolute, but your whole letter argues against this. You need to have one idea and support it throughout. Stay healthy. And so I think that kind of maintained a positive tone. Even though, this is like a C paper. And so it does definitely need some revisions. He hasn't made those revisions. That's his choice. He can take it or leave it for a grade. But this one's a little better for feedback. Again, just sticking with the random selection of feedback. This is from U.S. government. And this is after he has revised it. So he is up to 100%. It's looking good. But did I give awesome feedback? It's positive, great content, and nearly perfect writing and format. So that means they did quite good job the first time around. You can revise and resubmit for up to full credit. So I do that pretty often, and especially if it's really well done. Um, Again, I could have put the name in there. I could have put in some kind of personal touch or whatever. And maybe I could. It takes a long time to do that individually, but maybe I have like a canned comment of the day. Is kind of how I think of it. Is like, oh, maybe a quick little story or something, just to kind of put that in there. That wouldn't be very hard to copy and paste. Okay, this student got less than satisfactory grade, like a 53%. So I kind of pulled this one up just to see what I put on there. I do have very clear expectations for the discussion-based assessments where they need to write 4 or 5 sentences and have thoughtful questions. So she has enough questions, but her responses are pretty brief. I didn't put a name in there. I didn't put in much. I did put a smiley face, and I kind of replaced a lot of my punctuation with smiley faces, especially when it's something that's corrective, just because I want them to know I'm not angry at them. And I had even in our book on blended or online learning, they talked about using smileys often just to convey the right tone. Um, and kids, respond to that. I remember I did have one student even say, "Oh, the positive tone and the smiling faces help me know that you are just trying to help me." And so I kind of remember that as a little thing that I can do, even though it's not proper punctuation, so to speak. All right, I'm going to go kind of in reverse order, and I'm going to talk about the survey next. But kind of think about the end in mind, and I'll go over the survey. But the biggest thing I'm thinking about is this is my brief list of canned comments that I use pretty often. And what I think I will do is, as I'm correcting, like maybe for the week or for the day, I think I will add some sort of personal comment. Just maybe about something that happened to me this week, or just kind of something funny or interesting, and I'm going to add that to my canned comments, and I might add it to every single thing I grade, but it'll kind of be like a little PS, a personal side, and maybe a good way of connecting with the students, even though it's on a monotonous assignment feedback. Okay, so that's idea number 1 that I have, is for adding something personal to my common comments list. All right, I'm just going to reflect finally on my survey, and up here is fine. I give them course feedback on how to improve. Definitely a strong suit for me. This one I don't feel like I have a lot of control over, except for maybe the discussion-based assessment, because I just have a lot of different classes as far as how things are evaluated, unless they actually ask me, because there's rubrics and that's all within the course. So I'm not really sure what I can do to change this. Positive feedback, I think I did pretty well. Strongly agree. That's my majority, which maybe the little smileys and I do something in there is right. Based on my little gamut and my sampling, I didn't see too much positive, but I definitely did see some. All right, this is one of the ones I really want to work on, as I have a lot of neutral, and because I don't really do that much. I know like a year ago I did this more, and I would send out an email, or I would email the family. Those that did really well, especially in like discussion-based assessments, where that's kind of the project that I more or less created. And I would get really nice responses from the families when I would do that, and every kid has to feel like it's not just completing a checklist, that the idea of intrinsic value, that even if they already got 100%, right, or they got a 90%, or whatever it may be, but the teacher valued it enough to display it in front of others. I think we all have stories of when we have done an assignment, whether it's in college or high school or middle school, something you did really well, and the teacher brought it for the class, and you felt like, man, You know, like you like that class all of a sudden. Maybe you didn't like it before. Like I think of seventh grade English. I did not like seventh grade English. But one time the teacher read my story because she really liked it. She asked me, and then all of a sudden I liked seventh grade English. And so I've got other ones like that too. So I think that's definitely something I want to improve on is sending out a weekly. And in our last lunch, I talked about making this as a Flipgrid format, where any teacher or I might even actually add it to my, I don't know if I can add it to like my weekly progress report, um, or maybe on the side. As I'm still kind of brainstorming on this. Once I get to develop and implement, I'll decide officially. But like as a Flipgrid where they can actually see me, kind of like talking like casually like this, and then kind of going over their assignment as a screen share. I think that would be the best way to do it because it just adds that personal touch. It's not just another thing to read. And then they can be able to, respond and vote maybe. Okay, my teacher gives me the strategies to help me get my work done. Strongly agree, mostly agree, it's good. Some disagreed. I don't really know what to say about that because I can't give them strategies if they don't ask. I can't ever think of one time in responding to a student where I didn't do my best to give them strategies for how to do it. If they ask me to reword things, then I do it. If they ask me to explain it differently, I do it. There's never been one time where they're really frustrated, but they might be just interpreting that as me doing that ahead of time. So I could maybe have like a resource list of how to do things. And even as I have my own Edpuzzle and YouTube channel with readings and stuff that might be supplemental materials, that could help for some classes. All right, my teacher keeps me focused on my goals and what I need to do to achieve them. The weekly reports, I know they're mandatory. I do that. When students ask me, what they should do next, I certainly give them things and details and respond to an email format. I do try to really be encouraging as far as like some assignments are about careers and just kind of propelling them along. My teacher communicates clear expectations about how I behave and the quality of my work, so definitely did well there. Explains the concepts clearly. I did get some disagree and I got some neutral. I definitely could do some other supplemental videos. It's just hard to know what students need help with that they don't ask. So again, this question is kind of hard to address except for like in an actual brick and mortar face-to-face school. But I guess what I could do, to help absolve this is to do some video or voice recordings instead of always doing a text. I always do text-based feedback just because I think it's easier to look at and review. But that does not mean that I couldn't do some explanatory things, like for if they're struggling with like a certain concept. I think maybe math and stuff might have this more, but it's not real often. I guess, in the one assignment with Nathan Edwards where the Sixth and I think it was the Second Amendment and it wasn't consistent logic, I could have done a video to explain that, and I think that might have been beneficial. All right, so again, what I'm going to try to focus on is some weekly highlighting of student work, as that is my biggest deficit for praising kids in front of others. And that would really make a positive environment. So that's going to be my primary focus. The other things I think I can work on, but at the same time, one thing at a time. All right. So those are some of my reflections and looking at my feedback, and didn't plan this, I just kind of went for it. Okay?